Hello, everybody. My name is Pete Bowers. I'm the founder of the WordWorks Literacy Center. My work is in an instructional approach called structured word inquiry, which is based on the premise that literacy and children learning to read deserve instruction explaining how the writing system works. And I think that there's some aspects about the writing system that are really misunderstood in important ways, typically, that I can clarify. And I want to clarify it, you talking about this matrix into word sum. Now, if you've heard about structured word inquiry, this is probably the most likely thing you've seen. What I want to show you, though, while it looks like it's about morphology, and certainly it is, I'm going to argue that it's actually really a doorway to understanding the whole writing system. And that is because of the special place that morphology plays in how a writing system works. So I want to illustrate that with an example. So imagine you have a child who misspells the word structure like this, or that, or that, or that. My question to you before we dive into this is what do you have right now in your understanding of the spelling system that would help you help a student understand, not just remember, but understand, which will lead to remembering, why this word is spelled in this way and not those ways. And I think that a problem that we can highlight here is if we think about the traditional reading triangle, which I totally agree with, we need to help kids understand the links between the spellings, pronunciations, and meanings of words. And that's how we create a sight word and get to this automaticity that we need for reading and writing. However, the problem I think that we commonly see is that we're trying to link speech to print. But I think too often speech is thought of as if it's just sound. And so we're linking the letters and the sounds. But the problem as we see here is these spellings all have letter combinations that could represent this pronunciation. But if the pronunciation means what a structure is, meaning is central in understanding which grapheme needs to be there. And that meaning in this case is through morphology. And this is our morphology as a binding agent that John Kirby and I described in our first 2010 vocabulary study that introduced the term structured word inquiry. And then we outlined it more fully in a 2017 chapter. But so I'm going to dive into the investigation now at the end. But I need to show you this, sorry. What I want to show you, I'm going to, in this video, I'm going to take you from these word sums and how you can go from those word sums to construct this matrix. And then I'm going to show you how this matrix is essential for being able to decide between all of those spellings, to understand those spellings, because the morphology is going to explain the grapheme-phoneme correspondences, because morphology is a central driver in grapheme-phoneme choice, which just is not a central aspect of a lot of instruction out there right now. So I'm going to dive into the practical bit right now. I'm starting with a set of word sums. I hope to make another video showing how you get to this point, how you can use certain tools to find related words and construct these word sums. You'll notice that I've marked this E is replaced when you add that AL. And I've already looked up the root of this, which is an old Latin root, pile, build, assemble. So any word has that meaning. Now, this was really, this video was prompted because I saw my friend Sarah Leland, who had made a really cool template and process to help kids get from the word sum to the matrix. And that's what the main practical part of this video is. And she's doing a lot of things that are similar to things I've done before, but I think she's added this interim step that I find really helpful. And so what Sarah does, I think, is so cool. She has her word sums, and then she moves the left side of the word sum into the proto matrix templates. I call it a proto matrix because it's not a matrix until we do some revisions, but it gets us going. And what we can see is wherever there's a plus sign in the word sum is going to become a vertical line in the matrix. Now, in this template, the only part that is already established is the banner. The banner of the matrix is where the base goes, and you can't have a matrix without a central base. So that's where that's going to go. Here we have these great outlines. We don't know where we're going to put our horizontal or vertical lines of the matrix yet. We're putting the morphemes in place, and that's going to help us decide how to make the lines. And so here we have another one. Notice with this one, the interesting bit is that this one has two prefixes in front of the base. Now, I know that I need, wherever this plus sign is going to be, I need the vertical line. So I can already see I'm going to need a vertical line there, but I'm going to hold off and put all the morphemes down and then start to work with the lines. And this one I like because we have no prefix at all, which is a signal that you don't need a prefix to make a word, obviously. You could just start at the base. And here's another one like that, but here we have two suffixes, here we have three. And finally, we get one with two prefixes over here too. So we've now converted all of the data from our word sums, the left side of our word sums, to the right side. I want you to notice, however, that in the word sum for a particular word, sometimes there's suffixing changes, and I've marked that with the word sum. But when you're in the matrix, you don't show any suffixing changes because the matrix is showing the actual complete forms of all the written morphemes. The suffixing conventions happen when you go through this process, which is the process arrow, of assembling, putting together, synthesizing the morphemes, and that includes suffixing changes. We only have one in this set of words. So now that I'm this far, I'm going to clean it up a little bit, but I want you to notice one of the powerful things of the matrix is once you have a cell in a matrix, you don't need the same morpheme more than once. So in the word sum, I need to have the base in each word, of course. But once I'm getting to a matrix, I'm doing a family. STRUCT is the name of the base in this family. So I can turn all those STRUCTs into just one in here. Now, this brings us to a metaphor that I quite like. We talk about morphological families and etymological families. I'll put in the link a video that Murray Foley and I made on that topic that if you want to explore further. But the point is, a morphological family is members of a family that share the same spelling and meaning of the base, our STRCT. And we can think of the matrix kind of like a house because all of the members of this family live in the same house, but we haven't added a part here that's nice. These are just temporary horizontal lines to keep me organized. But when I got to finish the matrix, I have to have horizontal lines and vertical lines, and I need to understand what those mean. And that's what this part is about. And the point that I need to make is I can go from left to right in a house. You have vertical, you can go through walls. You have doors that go through walls, but you don't have doors that go through ceilings. You have to go to a staircase or something for that to happen. And that's what we're getting out of this. If I start making a word here, I can go into, some people think of an elevator, some think of a staircase, and now I can go up or down and enter any other floor to get to a word. So we have to remember that we can go left, we go left to right in the matrix, but we can't go up and down over these lines. So now I'm at the point where the other thing I need to highlight is in the matrix, I need to signal the meaning of the sense of meaning of that base, because this carries the main denotation of any word in the matrix. And I want you to see where we're getting. We call it the orthographic denotation, and we get that from the root. If you look up any of these words, the etymology, you'll get back to a root, Latin root struere, with pile, build, assemble. That becomes what we call the orthographic denotation that we can put in the matrix. I don't put the Latin root in here because the base is an English thing. The Latin is in English, but it's the original source that we got it from. So it's useful, especially when you have a bound base, to remind what that means. So now what we got to do is look where these vertical lines go. The plus signs in the word sums, they become vertical lines in the matrix. So notice what I've done. I had plus signs between the RE and the CON and the DE and the CON in here. So right off the bat, just to get myself going, I'm just putting a straight line from top to bottom in those spots. And now the next step is going to be to think about, okay, so where do my horizontal lines go? Well, before I even do that, I can now kind of take a look and notice, just like I had all those STRECTs in this cell, it turns out this CON is in front of the STRUCT base, and this one is too. So that's why I can say, hey, I don't actually need to have two CONs in this matrix. I can reduce that down to one. But I want to be very clear and that this CON is for deconstruct. This one is for reconstructed. So I'm going to put them together so I see that. And that tells me that I can, for the moment, I'm going to put these horizontal lines here because what they are, remember, there are walls, are ceilings and floors. And although, you could make a word reinstructed, I suppose, no problem. But this matrix is built on these word sums, and I don't have that word yet. And what I'm trying to get you to do is understand the matrix. So you're only building words here that are in these word sums. I don't have an RE prefix anywhere here with a plus sign before a DE or an IN. So I need to put that line there to show that in this matrix, I'm only saying that you can go from this RE to that CON to build a word, or that DE to that CON to build a word, but I don't have any evidence from these word sums that I could go up or down. So that's the left side. On the right side, I quickly noticed, hey, we got two UREs right next to each other. Now, these happen to be word sums that were just lined up on top of each other. That's just pure chance, but that makes it really easy to see. And so what I can do is I can reduce those two UREs to one. But again, I have to make those lines to make it clear that I'm only saying that these words with the URE suffix from these word sums have that afterwards. But then if you look carefully, there's another problem, because remember, you can always go from left to right. So this matrix as it stands is telling me I can make structures, structural, structurally, and that's all good. But there would also be a potential door here. So it's giving people the signal that you could make a word structuresly. Now, I don't even know if that is even a possible word in English, but it doesn't matter. It's not here. If I don't have it here, I'm not going to put it in my matrix. So I need a way to make all of the available words available, but not make a word I don't want to point to. So I need a way to prevent people from thinking you can go from that S suffix to that LY, and that's why I need the horizontal line. So I no longer can get down there. Okay, it turns out we got another double. Now this is interesting because now this ION and that ION, they weren't next to each other like the URE was. And I only need one because I could go construction, or I could go construction. So it's just useless. It's not doing anything. So I can get rid of one of them. Just think which one, just looking at this matrix, which should we get rid of first? Which should we get rid of? And I would say I'm going to get rid of this one because there's nothing after it. It's not with anything else. I might as well just keep these in the same place. So there, I get rid of that one. So let's see what other choice. Now I got to kind of clean up this matrix and figure out which of these horizontal and vertical lines I'm going to keep. So I want to remind myself of these two special parts of my word sum in which I have two prefixes going into one prefix, or one suffix going into two different pathways. So I need those. I'm reminding myself those are important horizontal lines, which means there was nothing down here. These vertical lines aren't doing anything for me here. And now I see there's actually nothing there. Oh, let me go back up here. And also these lines, remember, have to be plus signs. There's no plus signs after that, any ION. There's no plus sign there because there's nothing after it. So I can get rid of those lines. Okay. Now, oh, look what else is here. There was still this line here. Notice if you have an empty cell, it's not valid. There's no reason to have an empty cell. You only have the vertical lines with plus sign. So I can now just get rid of that line, and that side seems to be in good shape now. And then I see that this was just emptiness, so I've got rid of that. Oh, my base in the banner is a bit low, so I'll just move that up. Okay, but again, we have an empty cell. I don't have any information there. I can just get rid of it. And oh, now I see this emptiness, so I'm going to get rid of that. And now that seems silly, so I'm just going to reorganize it so it looks nice. Okay, so I seem to have gone as far as I can go. I only have lines that I need. I don't need a line here because it's not telling me it's not separating any information. I can go from the IN to the STRCT or the DE to the STRCT. I don't need a line here telling me anything. I needed this line to prevent either mistakenly trying to go from one of these prefixes up to over there. There's sums you could do, but then I would need to have a new word sum and rearrange my matrix. But this is the matrix that I'm building from these. So I have my hypothesis that this matrix represents exactly these word sums. So the thing that I have now that is really helpful is we can test that. if you're learning how to do this, you need to be able to find out where your mistakes are before you can revise them. So fortunately, we have an online tool that makes matrices from word sums. So that means that I can take these word sums here, copy them, and if I go to that link, I end up here at the mini matrix maker, and I can just go ahead and paste all my word sums in. And I can put my base, struct. Notice I'm always spelling it out, all single letter graphemes. I'm not pronouncing it because it's pronounced differently in these different words. But I do know my orthographic denotation from the root was tile, build, assemble, and I put that in quotation marks because that's going to show up under the base in the banner. Now all I have to do is click update, and it makes my matrix. And here's the word sums that I have. I could go ahead and print this as it is, but while I'm here, I want to show you something else that I've been using recently in my tutoring that I really find helpful. Now that we look at this, we can say, hey, can you think of any other words we might be able to build? And for example, let's say a student says constructively. This matrix doesn't make constructively right now, so I'd have to make a new word sum. And so now I can ask the student, so I want you to think about how is the matrix going to change when we do that? So they have their hypothesis. We come back here, and now I can type in a new word sum. CON plus STRUCT. I want constructively, so now I have my IVE, and then I need my LY, and then that's rewritten as CON STRUCT IVE LY. Now, I should point out that you notice you can't show spelling changes in the mini matrix maker because that messes the machine up. So you have to know this changes. But so before we press go, let's come back here. Remember, we're making constructively. I'm gonna need an ly somewhere after that, but can I use that ly? Well, we can come back and press update. And then we see, no, we can't use that ly because this one comes after the IVE, not after that AL. So so you can see how you can go back and forth and try things. I'm going to get rid of that new word sum that wasn't involved in the one we built. And so I have my old matrix. I could take a screenshot, but I've already done that and we can see it here. It allows me to compare the matrix I made from these word sums to the mini matrix maker made from these word sums. Now, they don't have to be identical. They just have to have the same structure. And what I mean by that is, notice I have an RE and a DE prefix in front of the CON. Well, I have a DE and an RE in front of the CON. It doesn't matter that order. It doesn't matter that these two cells are at the top and these are at the bottom because they result in the same pathways for words. And I have my I and a D, so that's good. That all works. I can see that I have the same three suffixes in that cell, my URE going to an S and to an AL plus an LY, different order, but that's all good. So now I'm quite confident that my matrix is valid. Now students might want to continue and make more words now that they've shown they can do that. There's ways to go down that path as well. Okay, so we've reached the point where we have gone through a process of putting a specific set of word sums and representing them in a matrix, testing that our analysis and of the construction of matrix was valid with the mini matrix maker. At this point, there's many options you have. Kids might want to make a nice, pretty matrix, maybe go to the word searcher and find more words and build a bigger matrix now that they've shown they can do it. But what I want to do now is be very clear about how important everything we've just done is for understanding grapheme-phoneme correspondences. And now we can explain why the spelling of structure is like it is and not like the other examples we saw in the beginning. So let me just step back. So one of the many things I think that a matrix does is it gives us a worked out example of a written morphological family. What I mean by that, a worked out example is a concept in cognitive load theory where if you find a way to provide a clear illustration of how something complex works, it can be a diagram, it can be many steps in a math problem that you give the answer to and you explain how it works. In this case, I'm giving a worked out example of the structure of a written morphological family with this base, and this is just some of the members. And what that does is it reduces the cognitive load for studying the shifting pronunciations of these morphemes with the consistent spellings. So if we take a look at the misspellings we thought at the beginning, what we're seeing is these are possible grapheme-phoneme correspondences for a pronunciation structure. But if that pronunciation means structure, like the structure of something, then we don't have this many options. We only have one. That the morphemic role in the grapheme choices reduces the multiple choices of grapheme phoneme correspondences just to the one set that we need, and we can link those choices to meaning and related words. So let me show you what I mean. If we, instead of just thinking of the line here, we draw attention to how the word structure has this meaning of pile build, and we can link it to the pronunciation of words of instruct, destruction, construction, structure. We see the shifting pronunciation, but what we need is the graphemes for this base that can represent any of the pronunciations of that base, which is why in SWI we don't call this the base struct. We call it the base struct because it doesn't even have a pronunciation until it's in a word. So when I'll look at the T in particular, but let me come back here for 1 second. Just take a look across this matrix. Let's take the word deconstruct. In that word, this DE prefix is obviously pronounced D, the way I just said it. But if I say destruction, that DE is the same prefix, but it's now pronounced D, right? And I can say construct. Why not CUN? Because it's the prefix CON. Sometimes that CON is be pronounced con, in other words, sometimes kun, and that's okay. It's the same spelling. And we see over here, we had a UR, an ER, an IR as all hypotheses about how to pronounce that, how to write that at the end of structure. But those are possible in other words, right? But when that is the pronunciation of this suffix, it's spelled with a URE. And now we can fix that and automate that structure as something that we're familiar with to read and to spell. But I want to really jump in on this particular grapheme phoneme correspondence that I really think is particularly misunderstood, and one that illustrates the problems of trying to teach grapheme phoneme correspondences without reference to morphology. When we take a look here, notice we have a CH or an SH. We're trying to write this phony in structure. People might think of that as a CH sound, and in instruction, they might think of it having as an SH sound, but they don't have a CH or a TH or a CH. And what we can see is, if I say instruct, I can ask, how do you pronounce that base in the word instruct? And the response would be struct. And in that pronunciation, I'm getting that default pronunciation I expect of the T grapheme. It's writing the T both here and there in instruct. Now, but what if I want to add the ion to make the word instruction? Now I ask you, how do you pronounce that base in instruction? And a lot of people, when I ask that, they say struck, and then the suffix is shun, but this does not have graphemes for shun. No, this is just an ion, and this word in the word instruction is pronounced un. This T is writing the sh. So the base in instruction is pronounced strucsh. But it can do that when we study these grapheme phoneme diagrams that show us that the default job of the T grapheme is to write the T phoneme. But if there's an I or U following that T, immediately following that T, then the T can write sh or ch. We see this in other graphemes, like the C grapheme will write k unless there's an E or Y after it. But if there's an E or Y after it, that C might often represent, but it could represent other things like in musician. Now, we do that with other graphemes, but somehow I haven't seen this kind of explicit instruction of the grapheme phoneme correspondences of the T. And I think there's a good reason for that. And that's because I've yet to find a word where the T grapheme writes sh or ch, unless there's a morphemic boundary between that T and the I or the U. And that means if you're not teaching with word sums in a matrix, you can look at a word like instruction and just think that the whole thing's a base. right? Or you can think of struction or something, but you don't know that that T and the I are in separate morphemes. And this brings up a huge point that is really, I think, needs to be brought to instruction of grapheme-phoneme correspondences, and that is that graphemes only happen inside a base. Graphemes can't straddle a morphemic boundary, but you don't learn that way if you're not taught with the matrices and the word sum. So here we are seeing that this guess of instruction, if I tried that base, it won't work in this matrix because this SH can't spell the T that I need in instruction. Similarly, this can't be with a UN. There's no UN suffix. It's an ION. But when we put all these pieces together, guess what? We don't need to wait until this upper grade level lesson like I just did where I model this stuff. We can do, this is an example of something I did in a grade 1 class. And what they were doing is they were studying the class. The teacher asked me to work on the word transition because the kids were working on their transitions from one activity to another. This happened to be in San Francisco. I knew the kids knew about BART transit and they knew what it meant. It's a thing that moves you around. We had talked about that. But you talk about transit and transition, there was that T grapheme writing in transit and in transition. And then I also used act and action. In fact, I probably started with that one. And then once we learned this pattern of the grapheme T, they run around the room looking for words that have a T for T and a T for sh. And so when we look closely at this in early years, we can see there can't be a TI digraph in action because it's about an actor. And I would have talked about that with the class, like who's your favorite actor? Oh, I like Bruce Willis, he's my favorite action star. So you start talking about acting and actor and action and draw attention to the shifting pronunciation, but the consistent spelling. And that is the way, then kids can build this understanding from the beginning. And so there we saw that. So finally, I'm coming to the end of this little film, but I wanted to highlight how working with word sums, the matrices, and grapheme-phoneme correspondences help us understand how the writing system doesn't just map onto pronunciation. It maps directly onto morphology and meaning, and it does so in such a way that we have to study them together. I hope to make another video following up on this, really diving into the research part, and even another video showing you ways to come up with this set of word sums in the first place, where you have to understand morphology and etymology, how to use etymological resources. But that's a story for another time. Hope this helps. Cheers.